may have time for one more question.
Yes, sir. I appreciate the presentation today. I have it's a two-part question. One, I think we've correctly identified that this ballot in its present form is initially to push power out to Northern Virginia data centers, and we've linked data centers as a reason for the build of this project. And certainly we've also stated Dominion's own word that they want to on and off ramp this eventually. So that looks to the future of the future data center build out in Central Virginia. So how do your organizations, or how do we, as a whole, further engage the counties? Because again, there's a dichotomy at the county level of preservation and economic development. And sometimes the economic developers look at the Northern Virginia counties with their tax revenue and suggest this is an easy way out of fixes that we have here in Central Rural Virginia. So what further engagement can we do as organizations at the state level to impress upon or create better avenues for agritourism, for agriculture, and better incentives to keep what we have in Central Virginia? Thank you.
Do any of our partners want to speak to that, Will? Or Irene?
It's about not just now, but long term, the future. We can't just look at what we're going to get today. And those who are looking at the tax dollars for today are not thinking about the negative impacts that are going to close possibilities for the future. And that's what we're trying to avoid. We'd like for future generations to be able to experience the history and the nature and all the things that we have. Imagine if everything is just wall-to-wall data centers throughout this area. What a different world that would be, and not what I think we want to carry forward.
Thank you, ma'am. Will with Preservation Virginia. So I do think this is a pretty critical year to have this conversation. We've been talking a lot about the 250th, the birthday of the United States. What an interesting intersection to be talking about this sort of technology of the future, so to speak, versus reconciling with our past. At Preservation Virginia, a few years ago, we did do a study on heritage tourism in the Commonwealth. It is a big business. It's a big industry, but it's kind of a quiet one. You know, it doesn't get the attention that some of these larger new developments get, but the amount of folks coming to this state and spending money here, it's in the billions. It's in the top 10, one of the top 10 industries in the state. So we do want to constantly educate local lawmakers about the impacts of heritage tourism. We like to joke that the thing about tourists is they spend their money and they go home, right? It doesn't require a lot of infrastructure. It doesn't require a lot of build-outs to host folks for some of these projects and programs that are going on during the 250th anniversary of the United States. There could be ways that, at least on the state level, there could be some incentives created, whether it be more assistance for the Virginia Tourism Corporation or local tourism offices, or grant programs for historic sites. It's certainly needed. I think often folks assume there's a big pot of money for groups like this. There is not. We are constantly grinding and fundraising to keep this work going. So there could be some more support on the state level potentially one day. But I will say from a long-term historic preservation perspective, something that's really concerned us at Preservation Virginia is, what are we going to do if these buildings are not needed one day? How do you repurpose a massive data center like this? What if the technology does change? At some point, we're going to be left with this dystopian landscape of essentially of buildings that can't be rehabbed for other uses, potentially. So if you think really long-term like that, what is the end result going to be for future generations? So there needs to be a balance there. And the reality is, Virginia already has a ton of data centers. It's not like we haven't done our part. We've done our part in this race for future technology. Maybe somebody else can step up now, and we continue to preserve the landscapes here in Virginia.
Yeah, we've got more than twice as many as the next.
That's right.
So, I mean, it's not just a little bit. We've got a lot.
Yeah. So the other thing that I think we're struggling with on the economic development perspective is that data centers and AI are not job creators. And that can be a blessing. It means you have less education services and other things for local governments. But those of us who live in Virginia, who work in agriculture, who work in conservation, who work in tourism, are now threatened by an infrastructure which is not going to replace our jobs. And as much as the economic activity of AI and data centers is exciting, the numbers are huge. Most of that is actually purchasing computer equipment from out overseas, for which they get a sales tax exemption. And it's not really investing in goods and services that come from Virginia. There is some, but it's much smaller by the numbers would suggest. Versus farming, forestry, tourism, hospitality, which employ a lot of people and also use local goods and services to support the economy. The other thing to think about is full cost accounting. If you only look at the net positive short-term tax revenues, remember they're depreciating these assets very quickly. You could end up with a Walmart phenomenon where you have a big box that is not on the tax rolls because it's been fully depreciated, right? Real thing. We need assets that become part of the local economies over time, and those assets are now at risk because of these infrastructure projects. Last thought, who pays for the infrastructure? Right now, the cost allocation for transmission lines in Virginia, residential ratepayers are being asked to pay 48%. That rate class is paying 48% of transmission infrastructure costs. There is a proceeding right now in front of the State Corporation Commission, which is called the T1 rider, really helpful. But it's the extra thing you pay on your bill for transmission like this. And right now, 48% of the costs are passed on to the residential ratepayer, although 100% of the future investment is for data centers. The Attorney Generals of 14 states, Consumer Counsel from 14 states, went to PGM last week to raise the visibility of this issue. They have a graphic which shows that 100%, actually 110% of the future need for capacity is directly attributable to data centers, and that the rest of us are using less energy than we used before. Stunning graphic. The only reason we are building these things is for this industry, and they aren't paying the full cost of the infrastructure or of the impacts. And when you do all that math, the lost jobs, the huge costs that are passed on to the average Virginian, I don't think this is such a great deal.